So really I wanted to move towards something more eco-friendly, but I really didn't have a plan. Kind of excited me that I wanted to transition to something else. I really wanted something that we could come out and get some fruit off of, but that also, you know, is food for the pollinators, food for our family, and potentially food for the community.
Is gooseberries, blueberries, a blackjack fig, peach trees. This is an Arctic babe, miniature nectarine. We also selected citrus trees, a thornless blackberry, Fuyu persimmon.
There's going to be tons of fruit.
Sustainable Solano's garden installations are usually in-person, hands-on educational events where the community comes together to learn about permaculture, install a garden, and share a meal. The goal of the Solano Sustainable Backyard program is to educate the community about sustainable landscapes through introducing the concept and practice of permaculture to Solano County. We select private and public sites throughout the county to demonstrate and educate. If a private site is selected, the homeowners agree to a yearly tour of the garden. The homeowners are stewards of the land and public education, and we call them demonstration food forest keepers. Mary and her family are the newest food forest keepers. The garden is located in Dixon. The family called their demonstration garden Pollinators Paradise. In permaculture designs, we look to nature as a guide and mimic the layers of a forest, designing gardens around the flow of water to create a lush, beautiful, productive space that builds organic matter in the soil. These gardens are designed to capture rainwater and direct roof water to swales, where it can recharge groundwater and nourish the plants in the garden. When possible, we look to include laundry to landscape graywater systems to irrigate trees and perennials. The plants are selected based on function and are planted in guilds to create a mini ecosystem. This helps with pests, to call in pollinators, and enrich the soil. Most of our designs include a variety of tall and dwarf fruit trees, berries, pollinator plants, and ground covers. Due to the restrictions from COVID-19, we were unable to install Pollinators Paradise as a community. We had to reimagine the installation and came up with the idea of recording a series of educational videos on the elements of a food forest garden. Derek Downey, owner of Whole System Designs in Davis, was the designer for this demonstration food forest garden in Dixon. And he will be leading this educational series that shows how to convert a front lawn into a food forest garden.
Well, when I came to this landscape, there was a lawn and there was a diseased magnolia tree.
It was nice for shade, but the tree was kind of diseased.
And a lot of surface roots from that tree interspersed in this whole landscape. And so that was the first observation I made, because whether or not the tree was going to be removed now or later on affects the design I would have made.
And actually there were other trees that were planted right up against the house.
And there were also rotting roots from old birch trees.
And I think just over time, I really wanted to transition away from lawn, because just the maintenance that it takes, all the water and the mowing and really the emissions from the mowing. And so really I wanted to move towards something more eco-friendly.
Alrighty. Most people have a roof over their house, and when it rains, that water gets collected by the gutters and will flow through the downspouts, and usually it goes into the street and away. And if you want to make use of that water, you can easily capture it with a simple swale. In this garden, we diverted the roof rain catchment through this gutter down the downspout into a 10-foot long pipe, and it goes right into the swale. So the water actually coming off the roof way over there makes its way into the landscape here whenever it rains.
You know, when we worked with the designer, we wanted to have a place that we could sit out and sort of enjoy the front yard, and just wanting to get more fruit, more veggies. My daughter, I love having her know that you can actually make something yourself. You can take care of it. There's like a sense of accomplishment.
So it's good to know as much as you can about your landscape, your existing landscape. What are features you want to keep, and what are features that you are flexible, maybe removing, so that you can have a long-term food forest, for example.
So the hope would be that, you know, potentially we do a little free pantry or free little farm stand.
This landscape is facing north. It's in the front yard facing north, and it's important to know what direction your landscape is in relation to your house, because whether it's the north side of your house or the south side of your house, you're going to get different exposure of sunlight at different times of day. The south side of the house would get more sunlight in the winter, but in the summer, the north side of the house will get a little bit of afternoon sun at a certain angle. So you got to be careful with your plant selection to base it off of the exposure to the sun and access to shade for certain plants that like shade. You want to make sure that you're choosing plants that can handle your particular soil type. You can Google how to do a soil test, and you can literally dig a sample of soil from your landscape, and you can determine the texture from the feel of it after moistening it, and you can also do a test of porosity, where you dig a hole and you put some water in the hole and see how long it takes to drain. If that water is not draining very quickly, you might have a drainage issue, which will affect plants that have sensitive roots. So it's good to know, like when you go to plant nurseries and you're asking for plants, make sure the plants you choose can handle the type of soil you have. Is it heavy clay? Is it sandy? Is it silty? Or some kind of combination, which is normally the case.
Even on our street, besides this right here, there's really not a lot of trees in general, just it's just lawn. We
wanted to include some canopy trees, the highest layered trees. We chose Fuyu persimmon, which will be going towards the middle of the garden. And we also selected citrus trees, which will create a hedge on the eastern edge of this landscape. And we also selected a dwarf blackjack fig, which will stay within 10 to 15 feet of the ground, even without much pruning. Once you get your upper story canopy trees figured out, you can fit in smaller trees in the gaps. And so in this landscape, we chose some genetic dwarf nectarine and peach trees, which won't get too big. They'll get 5 to 6 feet off the ground, and so you'll be able to harvest them without a ladder. People too are a part of the garden, and you gotta plant yourself where you're comfortable in the garden. If you have a nice shady spot, put a chair there, put a hammock there, and sit there and watch your garden grow and produce fruit, and breathe in the nice smells and appreciate what you got.